This tutorial is going to show you how to do a manual game save. So for example, if you want to save a user's progress as they're going through your level, this is one way to do it, not the only way. And you probably want to do something with checkpoints, and you might want to save other things than what we're doing, but at least it shows you the basic principles on how to do it. So I have started with a project already, and all it really does is it has a left and right move functions, and we're checking for the right arrow or the left arrow to move our guy around. And I built this level, you can see it here, these different little sort of cave things. 1, 2, 3, 4, so we can actually see that we're saving our progress as we move our guy through the level. So if I run it right now, all we're going to do is just, we can move left and right, and nothing more than that. What I want to do is I want to be able to give the user the option to hit a save button, and that'll save his progress through our level. So, so that's what we're going to do. And the way we're going to do that is, first thing that we do need is a save button. So we're going to sort of throw a save button that's on the screen at all times, and then later on we'll hide it and ask the player to press a button to show it. So I'm going to create our button. So I can just say UI. So I was over here on the left, and I right-clicked and I said UI button, and that's going to give us a canvas and an event system and our button right here. So for our canvas, I'm going to change our render mode to screen space camera, and I'll assign our camera to it so that it looks good. And then our scale mode, we'll say scale with screen size. And then now when I zoom in, our button should be somewhere here. And I'll just move it up into the top. The button also has a text component with it, and so I'll change that to say save. And now when I run, we should have this button over there that just says save, and it's moving with us because of the way we set the canvas up. And so now that's going to be always visible. And like I said, later on we'll turn that off so we can jump to a menu to show it, or however we want to do that. But for right now we'll have it there. And what we want to have happen is when I save, we want to save our progress. So if we're standing in front of the thing with 3 pillars, we'll hit save. And then if we unplay and play again, we want to be back there. So we haven't done any coding yet, so that's why it went back to the beginning. But we want to be able to save our progress through this level. So the way we'll do that is through something called PlayerPrefs. So let me go back to our code. All we really need to do is when the save button is pressed, we want to save off our position of our player, our X, Y, and Z values over here. Whatever these values are, we're just going to save those off to PlayerPrefs. And then when the game loads, we'll load these things back from PlayerPrefs and assign it to the transformed position of our player, and we'll be able to save our progress. So I'm going to put in a little function here, public void save pressed. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to call this function when the button's pressed. So now if I click on our button inside of our scene here and we go down over here on the inspector, these are the list of functions that get called when we do an on-click. So I'm going to add one here. What are we calling? We want to call something that is in our player, right? Where's our player? What do we call him? Because essentially we have our creature blue. This is what we call them. Here's the function we want to call when we click it. It's a member of this guy controller, right? Here's our guy controller class, and here's the save pressed button, or save pressed function that we want to have called. So when we're in our button handler down here, when we're assigning it, we need to assign it to the object that has the script attached to it we want to call. So I'm just going to drag this creature blue over to it. And then now inside of our functions, we should see our guy controller class, and then we want to say saved press. And so here it is in our list. So anytime, now that this is all linked up, anytime we hit the save button, we're going to call into that function, which right now isn't going to do anything. But we can put like a little debug statement in here. Like this. And then when we run, let me go to my console. Every time I click on this, we'll see right here, we'll see this thing changing. You can see the number over on the right. Every time I press it, it's going up. And so at least we've hooked up our button to our functionality. Now we actually have to do something. And so what we're going to save is the position. That's all that we need to save. And there's a couple of different ways. Because there are 3 parameters associated with it, there's a few different things that we can do. We're going to do it the most straightforward way, which is to save these as 3 separate values inside of PlayerPrefs: position X, position Y, position Z. We'll just give it 3 different variable names. And I think we've done PlayerPrefs before, but I don't remember. You may be watching these out of sequence as well. So, so when we hit save, we want to say PlayerPrefs, and this is going to save to your disk, to your flash or your hard drive or whatever you have based on whatever. If you're running on your phone or you're running on your computer, whatever it is, it's going to save it in some place that's going to be persisted so that it's there the next time you run. So PlayerPrefs dot set. We need to do set float because these are all individual floats, and we'll say position X, and then the value is going to be transform dot position dot X. Like that. And why not? We'll save all 3 of them. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Oops, not 4. And we'll save our X, our Y, and our Z. And now whenever we press the save button, all these are going to be saved to the disk. And so the next step is that we actually need to make sure that something's getting written here and restore it when we start. So this is our start method. We're going to check and see if something has been saved in these values, and if it has been, we'll update the position of our player. So every time we start the game, our player is going to be positioned right here at these values. But if something had been saved in these, then we'll update the position right away. And since our camera is attached to our player, it's going to follow us. So inside of our start method, we can say something like if PlayerPrefs dot get float position X. So this is actually going to return a value, whatever is written in there. It's going to be 0 if it doesn't exist. So we'll say it's not equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, we'll just start at a regular spot. But if it's not equal to 0, then we'll update our position. So we'll say transform dot position equals new vector 3, and we'll say what are our 3 values? It's these 3 that we saved down here. Oops. So we PlayerPrefs dot get int or get float, sorry, position X, and then the second one is going to be PlayerPrefs get float position Y, and then Z. So yeah, we are getting the Z values, even though we are in a 2D world. Everything is still represented in 3D space, so let's make sure we get all 3 of those. So that's pretty much it, right? We're going to get our values and then set our position to it. And if we have never hit the save button before, this is going to be equal to a 0, so we won't jump into this spot, and we'll just start at our default location. So if we run, there we go. And if we start over again, we'll start right in the same spot. And actually, I tested this before, which is why my guy jumped to the wrong spot, because there actually was a value inside of there. But let's just save our position here at the beginning. And then when we start again, we're at the beginning. And then if I move over here to the second spot and I hit save, and then we unplay and play, we will be starting right here. And same thing if I go way over here to the third spot, I'll hit save, and if we unplay, play, we'll be in the third spot. And then if we go all the way down to the fourth one, and we don't hit save, we'll still be at our third spot. So, and so that's it. I mean, it's not that big a deal, and you can use that save button to save off anything you need, like money or progress through the level or anything you want to restore. But the important part is that it's not only doing this part here where you save everything, but it's on the start when you come back. The restoring of all your variables is just as important. One more thing that I'm going to add, I don't really care to see this button on the screen all the time. And so what I'm going to do is change it so that this thing is not visible all the time. and we'll hit a button to bring it back when we want to. So okay, so here we go. We have our save object, which is just an empty game object, which has our canvas and our button and all that sort of stuff associated with it. So later on, if we wanted to make a prefab and use this in other levels, we would be able to do that. And so what we're going to do is have this thing invisible by default, and then we will be able to toggle it with a button press. So we need a reference to that thing, so I'll have a public game object. Call it save object. And we'll assign that inside of Unity. So if we go back to Unity now, inside of our creature, now there's this save object here that I can just drag this thing over to. There you go. And now inside of our start method, we're going to disable this thing. So we'll say save object. Set active. False. And so if we do that and we run, we won't see our save button anymore. It's not there. And so then what we want to do is assign it to a key. So let's say we'll say if input dot get key down, and we'll just say key code dot s. How about s for save? So if someone presses the key button, what we want to do is we want to be able to show this thing. So we can say save object set active true. And so if we run, it's not there. I'm going to push S. There's our save button. Okay, now the other problem is this really shouldn't be just a true, because now there's no way to hide it. It should actually be a toggle. And so we're going to check and see right inside of this thing, what is the state of that game object? So we can do that by saying if we want to check and see if that is active, so we can say save object dot active in hierarchy. So if it's active, then we want to hide it. Otherwise, we want to show it. Move that up and make that a false. So if it's on the screen, we want to hide it. Otherwise, we're going to show it. And this is every time we press the S button. So now if I run, hit S, it's there, hit S again, and it's gone. And that way, we can tie it to a key press. And it doesn't just have to be a button, right? Because since it's showing this whole thing, you can have different background. You can have like a semi-transparent or darkened little window that pops up, so it feels like you're actually showing a window. You can have other options on it. You can even use this to show inventory and things like that. So anything that you want to show only occasionally, you can tie to a button press just like we did. So I think that'll do it. That will sort of handle manual saves. The other part of that question was says I want to use it to mess with the player. That's good. I don't quite understand what that means, but at least with this one, you should be able to dynamically show and hide a save button and save your state.